to hear the children after motion 4. So we're rejoining at motion 5, which is Councillors Clark and Smith. Do we have any amendments? Okay. Okay, Councillor Clark.
Thank you very much, Provost. It's hard to follow a performance like that, but we've really enjoyed having the children with us today. I speak today on behalf of every parent who has hesitated to bring their children to a Renfrewshire park because they simply don't feel safe. I speak for every woman who avoids parks knowing that while a space is good for her mental health, the anxiety of being there is just too great. I speak for all the new Scots who are afraid of racial attack. Certainly I'm aware of some of that. This motion isn't theoretical, it's deeply personal, woven into the very fabric of our community. Earlier this year, over 1,000 residents signed a petition calling for CCTV at Barshaw Park. This wasn't just a petition, it was a cry for safety. In June 2019, Renfrewshire Council approved a 180,000 allocation from the Town Centre Capital Fund to install lighting and CCTV in Robertson Park. There were two key reasons given for this decision: to open up the park as a safe through route in the evenings, enhancing public usage after dark, and to increase safety and deter crime, making the park safer for residents and visitors during the darker hours. If then, why not now? Edinburgh, Glasgow, Dundee, Highland Borders and Fife have CCTV in their parks. We have CCTV in one park. Yes, our parks present obstacles. I'm aware of that. Trees, sightlines, power supply issues, fibre connection, although that's a bit better than it used to be. But examples from other councils show us that hybrid systems with solar-powered wireless cameras, infrared night vision, and rugged designs can deliver 24/7 coverage, even in leafy environments, and that strategic placement around entrances, play areas, and footpaths ensures meaningful coverage with minimal intrusion. Such measures reduce crime at a time when police forces are stretched and, importantly, greatly enhance the public's perception of safety. So today I'm not asking for a budget. I'm asking that our existing community safety officers review the costs and practicalities of CCTV in our main parks, and that they would bring that back to the appropriate board. And that in doing so, they review the policy that seems to negate progress in this area, at least the progress which we've not made in the last 6 years. I'm aware that there's a sense in which always these things are under review, but I do think it's time for us to review the policy itself. Colleagues like this council make Renfrewshire Parks a model, a place where technology meets compassion, where deterrence meets community, and where public spaces are true, public, and safe. Today, I'm not asking you just to vote on cameras and cables, but on hope. The hope that every child, every woman, every resident of Paisley can walk, play, and live in our parks without fear. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
I'll second and formally reserve the right to come back in. Thanks, Provost.
Okay, at this point, Councillor Clark, firstly, I just want to point out that Council CCTV, well, this subject matter is already covered by the Council policy, Appendix 1, which was approved in January earlier this year. And to ask members if we are engaging in this debate on this item, could you please remember that one of the incidents in Brodie Park is an ongoing investigation, and please just watch what you say in this chamber. I don't want any of us to end up compromising any of that investigation, so please be very, very careful about what you say. But I'm not, when you're asking about reviewing the CCTV policy, I'm not sure whether you're asking for further reviews, extra reviews as to other than what we're already doing just now. Are you aware of the current policy review and the one that we just passed in January?
Yeah. Sorry, yes. I wrote to Georgia Bell, who's the lead officer of Open Space and Parks, and because I was asking about this, and she then referred me to the community safety people, but I don't think she was aware of a current review. And so that was one of the reasons why I'm asking. And also the fact that it's been so long since we've actually installed any CCTV in parks. And I'm just hearing from people across Renfrewshire that they would really like this. That's all I'm doing is raising the issue. I'm not pushing anything. I don't want to create a politics. I just want us to have another look.
I understand, and because of that, it's my opinion that this subject matter is already covered. However, I didn't want to rule this incompetent because it's such a serious issue. So maybe some of the other councillors can come in with other information. Councillor Eddie Devine.
Thanks, Provost. I don't intend to refer to that matter you're talking about. Gordon McNeil will not be surprised to see us hear what I'm going to say is I've been asking for lighting, proper lighting in Brodie Park for a number of years, and in fact, the last time was about a month ago, and it's been sort of declined at present. So I would hope that whatever we decide today, we at least get lighting in, because it's in our ward. Brodie Park. So I'll leave it there, Provost. Thanks.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of things to consider. Most importantly, the views of the people that actually live there. And I'm assuming that would take some sort of consultation, even if it's an informal consultation, before any action is taken. So yeah, you would need to discuss this.
I say that because I have been contacted. I'm pretty sure the other two ward members have been contacted by people who live in and around the Brodie Park area. So I'm asking it to be looked at, Provost.
Yeah. Okay, do we have Ian, Councillor Nicholson?
Provost, happy to accept the request to review the policy on the basis of what's been stated. Even though the policy was reviewed and updated in January this year, and it's an ongoing policy, it's a live policy. Where anybody puts a request in to look at particular areas, it can be picked up directly by the officers. Okay. But on that basis as well, I'm happy to have a discussion with the mover if this is something that could be brought back up again at cross-party working group. Maybe it could be a subject matter that everybody's on board with it, have a clear understanding of what the policy can do, the implications of where it can be applied, and also take on the fact that there was an attempt in the motion to limit it to main parks. But of course, as a council, we have to look at all public spaces and all parks, because right away in our own wards, we can make an argument as to why the parks in our areas don't have CCTV, like Barwood Park and Erskine, etc. So there's that question about what do we mean by main parks? Is there any works output from this based upon known events, issues in particular parks that have through routes that take you from point A to point B that people use as a route, as a walking route, therefore it becomes a pavement for people, not necessarily people just visiting the park in a sense. So there's a bit of work to be done on it. So if that's something the council would be agreeable to as well, we could pick that up as an ongoing bit of policy work and get something back as quick as possible. Thanks, Provost.
Okay, Councillor James McLaren.
Thank you, Provost. So I wasn't planning on coming in on this, but it is something that I've been looking at. My understanding is there's a problem with using CCTV cameras where children are involved, and with it being a park, I imagine there will be plenty of children playing there. Something I was actually looking into was having CCTV for crossing patrollers, and I was thinking, I've heard that there's a difficulty in having CCTV there because children are crossing the road. So I'd like some clarification on whether using CCTV and therefore filming children is likely to be a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McLaren. Yeah, there have been a few points raised today, I think, that the officers will take on board and address in any future reports that they give to us. But for the moment, there are no amendments, so can we agree the motion? Yeah. Okay, next is motion 6. That's Councillor Shaw and Hughes. Do we have any amendments? None. Councillor Shaw.
Thanks, Provost. Pleased to bring this motion today. It's about one simple principle, that is giving local residents a genuine choice over the name of the street they live on. Andrew Avenue in Renfrew was named, as I understand it, in the late 60s, early 70s. I can't be definitive on that, but go and get the maps, that's the timescale, alongside neighbouring streets, Edward Avenue, Anne Avenue and Charles Avenue. Now, at that time, these names were chosen to reflect the younger generation of the royal family, who were then viewed very differently in terms of their public standing and future role. The context, the reputation and expectations around one of these individuals were entirely different from what we know today. Since then, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has had his titles removed by the Crown and faces significant national and international concern regarding his behaviour and character. Whatever one's personal opinion is, it is clear that the circumstances that once justified naming a street in his honour have changed dramatically. But let me be absolutely clear, this motion does not seek to rename Andrew Avenue. It doesn't impose a decision. It doesn't dictate an outcome. What it does is recognise that residents of the street, not politicians, not social media, not those unaffected by the outcome, should have the final say on whether the name of their own street remains appropriate. And crucially, this consultation proposed in the motion would take place before kicking off any formal renaming process. In other words, nothing moves forward unless residents of the 52 properties in Andrew Avenue tell us they want it to. If the community says no, that's the end of the matter. Now, I want to be upfront. I personally think that the residents will reject any change due to the hassle factor of all the changes that they'll have to do themselves. My expectation is that the name will stay exactly as it is. But the issue has been raised as a genuine concern by constituents, and given everything that's happening nationally and internationally, it is only right that we allow people the chance to express a view. We're seeing changes all over the world to streets, to buildings, institutions previously named after or connected to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Only this week, the Duke's Course at St Andrews announced that it was being renamed. These decisions elsewhere don't dictate what should happen in Renfrew, but they do show that public bodies elsewhere are reviewing historical associations with the former prince in light of new realities. It is therefore reasonable for residents here to have that opportunity to consider their own position. And again, nothing will happen without the resident support. There is no predetermined outcome, no hidden agenda, no forced change. This is about democracy at its most local level, about respecting the choices of the people of Andrew Avenue and trusting them to make a decision that is right for them. Having a street named after you is a significant honour. It attaches your name permanently to a community, to families' homes and to the everyday life of local people. It is not unreasonable to expect that those afforded such an honour should be worthy of it. So I ask colleagues across the chamber to support this motion and allow the residents of Andrew Avenue to choose the future of their street. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. Councillor Lisa Marie Hughes.
Thanks, Provost. Given there don't appear to be any other comments, and I have nothing to add to Councillor Shaw's very succinct covering of the issue in the town, I'm happy to just formally second.
Okay, thank you. We have no other speakers, so can we just agree the motion? Agreed, thank you. That moves us on to motion 7 by Councillors Smith and Jill Graham. Councillor Smith.
Thanks very much, Provost. I just wanted to put this motion forward to the council today to recognise a lifetime of service to many of the areas in Renfrewshire. Monsignor Denis Carlin is retired after having been the parish priest in Howwood, but he's also, as you probably know, Provost, served in Glenburn and Lunwood and other areas across the Diocese of Paisley, which take in places outside Renfrewshire as well. Now, I was thinking about it when I was writing the motion. In 50 years of service, he must have touched the lives of hundreds of families, if not thousands, through the hundreds of funeral masses and weddings and baptisms that he's conducted over the years. And anyone who's met Denis will probably have also heard his dulcet tones, and he led the diocesan music for decades, and I'm sure music will still be a big part of his life and his retirement. So I just wanted to bring this forward today so the council can express our best wishes for his retirement and thank him for his years of service to Renfrewshire and beyond. Thanks, Provost.
Thank you. Councillor Graham?
Thank you, Provost. In talking to ward constituents about this motion, it was particularly in Howard, where latterly Father Carlin was the parish priest at Christ the King. It was clear that Father Carlin is very well liked and respected across the community. So I'd like to add their thanks and mine to Father Carlin for his dedication over the last 50 years and wish him a very happy, healthy retirement. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eddie Devine?
Thanks, Provost. There's not a lot you can say about Denis Carlin other than he's an exceedingly nice guy. He's had the pleasure of baptising some of my grandchildren, so he must be a good guy. But honestly, he is a character, and he's very well respected. Wherever he's served, he's a very, very nice guy.
Yeah. Councillor Audrey Doig?
Thank you, Provost. I've known Denis Carlin, Father Carlin, for over 40 odd years. And the way I knew him and got introduced to him was rather unusual. A gentleman in all whites with a badminton racket in hand would knock the staff door at Linwood Sports Centre and say, "I'm here to play badminton, who's going to join me?" He loved playing the game, whether it be singles or doubles, but it was most amusing to me about his grumbling when he missed a shot at the back of the court. And I questioned him one day. I said, "Father, how can you get away with all this grumbling and saying some unpleasant words?" And he said to me, "It's okay, Audrey. I've got confession tonight. I'll be cleared." That's how amusing he was and how he was such a nice guy and everybody would want to go and play badminton with him. But as Councillor Smith has mentioned, I don't know if you know, but Father Carlin was instrumental in coaching the choir for John Paul, the Pope's visit to Bellahouston. He led the choir. That's how instrumental he was in that visit. But as everybody said, he was such a jolly fellow. He was well liked in any community that he'd done, and he more than deserves his retirement after 50 years. So well done to Father Carlin.
Thank you, Audrey. Councillor Andy Doig?
Thanks, Provost. I would concur with everything that's been said, and I think I'd like to congratulate Councillor Smith and my ward colleague Councillor Gillian Graham for bringing this forward. As one of the councillors for Howard, have came into contact with Father Carlin quite a number of times. I did notice on the Diocese of Paisley website, one of his last positions was the Vicar Episcopal for Ecumenism and Interfaith Issues. And I think that's really quite telling, because if you think back 50 years, when Father Carlin would have been starting his ministry, it was only just 2 or 3 years after the Second Vatican Council, which was a major development, I think, for the Catholic Church in promoting dialogue and engagement. And I think he took that to heart at parochial level. He was really well liked across the whole village in Howard. He organised and helped to initiate a great many ecumenical matters with the Kirk in Howard. He was well liked right across the whole scope of the village. And the one anecdote I can tell, but it was one of some of my constituents who have been attenders at Christ the King. One of the things that he had initiated for about 12 years, Father Carlin was at the Scots College in Salamanca, and he was in charge of homiletics, to you and I, the art of preaching. And he drummed into the seminarians, "You must stick to 7 minutes when you're doing a sermon, not a second less or a second more. You must stick to 7 minutes." So people in Howard have been telling me about his famous 7-minute sermons. And I can see a glint in your eye, Provost. The Salamancan method might be employed here in the chamber, but well done to Father Denis. He's a very pleasant guy. He's a lovely person. He's been a terrific priest and a great spokesperson for the Catholic faith. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. I also concur with what everyone said. I do admire Father Denis Carlin just for his approach with people and for, you know, the way he interacts with his community and everything he's did for his community. He became a very close friend of my family and remains so to this day. So I was very pleased to see this motion. So I think it's a lovely way of honouring a man who has given so much to his community, Ben. So thank you for bringing this to us. I will need to have a wee word in his ear that he's not to start supporting Greenock and Morton though. So that's too far. We won't allow that to happen. But thank you for bringing this. And the motion's agreed, yeah? Thank you. Okay, motion 8 is Councillor Andy Doig and Councillor Hoods. Councillor Doig.
Okay, thanks, Provost. We had an earlier discussion, of course, about Scotland's recent successes in entering the World Cup, and I completely and utterly wish the team well, and so does the whole country, so does the whole chamber. But this is a motion about the real sport. This is about le vélo sportif. This is about cycling. And I'd like to congratulate the Johnson Wheelers on their 100th anniversary of the foundation in 2026. I'd like to applaud the club for their outstanding contribution they've made to Scottish, UK and international cycling over the last century. Now, on Monday night, Councillor Hood and I visited the Wheelers at their club, met some of their members. They've really got an outstanding record. They were founded in 1926. The club's got currently 196 members. It started off mainly as a touring club, but then went into the competitive side of the sport. One of the things they've did in the last 2 or 3 decades, which has really put the Johnson Wheelers on the Scottish and UK national stage, has been the development of the Johnson Jets. And that's like a youth development club, an easy riding section for 8 to 12s that can bring youngsters into the sport and then bring them on further if they want to pursue that, you know, to go into competitive cycling at a different level. But they've got so many medals and trophies. Looking at it, it was just amazing. I mean, some of the medalists they've had over the years, at a former discussion about a possible criterion in Johnsontown Centre, Councillor Gilmer had mentioned Rita Montgomery, and he might well do so again. Rita Montgomery was the World Veterans Road Race Champion in 1980 and 1983. Katrina Hare, European Champion, Masters in the Road Race, 2003. There's been various national champions since 1952. The one that I remember personally as a youngster in the days when I had a hairline and never had a waistline, I did a couple of years time trialling with the Stirlingshire Road Club. And at the time, there was a gentleman called Drew Brunton, who I believe now lives in Lochwinnoch, and I'd like to get in touch with him. Drew Brunton was a UK rider. He represented Great Britain in the milk race in the late 60s, early 70s. He was a Johnson Wheeler. He competed in the Commonwealth Games. By the time I knew him, he was a veteran, and he used to ride 10 and 25-mile time trials. And at the same time, I was a junior. So he was kind of at the end of his career, but he was still at that time always in the top 5 when it came to time trialing and racing. So he was a tremendous individual, and he's typical, I think, of a generation of Scottish cyclists that the Wheelers and other clubs in the west of Scotland produced. So I'm delighted to wish the Johnson Wheelers all the best. I want to keep in touch with them. I like to hear their stories about their experiences, and it takes me back to my youth. Thanks, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor Doig. Oh, forgive me, I turned to my page and forgot who your seconder was there. Councillor Hood.
Thank you very much. A lot of folk do that. Sorry, I'm not there, but I think I've got one of the bugs that I'm going about just now. Anyway, they went down to see the Wheelers the other day, and what amazed me was the amount of young people that were there. And obviously, these young people are the future of the sport. and obviously the future of the sport within Scotland, because obviously that's where they pick up the members. Had a good look at the cabinet that they've got with all their medals and the trophies that they've got, and I would just like to say 100 years coming up is absolutely fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hood. Councillor Chris Gilmer.
Thank you, Convener. Maybe remiss of me to miss this opportunity to add my congratulations to George Wheelers, a very successful club, as Councillor Doig has intimated. And I think I should take note of the previous motion and keep all our missives to below 7 minutes. So just to extend my formal thanks to George Wheelers, fantastic club. Keep up the hard work. It's great to see them out and about and promoting cycling in Johnson. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Gilmer. Yeah, well done, Johnson Wheelers, and I look forward to hosting civic reception for them next year. So we agree the motion? Agreed? Thank you. The next motion is motion 9. That's Councillors Andy Doig and Councillor Devine. Councillor Doig.
Okay, thanks very much, Provost. This motion really, I thought it was an appropriate time of year to bring this forward, Provost. As I've said in the first paragraph, we all feel when we get to events like Christmas, big cultural and religious events that are really important to people, you get family together. Food's always at the centre of the thing because food's so important to the human condition. And the point of this motion is really to raise a red flag and say there's increasing concern amongst the scientific community and government bodies like the FSA, Food Standards Agency and Food Standards Scotland about the linkages between ultra-processed food and its effects on health. And we need to be mindful of this because that has a knock-on effect on things. It has a knock-on effect, firstly, on individuals through the causation of illnesses like heart disease, diabetes, cancers of various kinds, but it has a big knock-on effect on bodies like the NHS and puts tremendous stress on the NHS. So there's a big cause and effect going on here. We're in a situation today because of things like ultra-processed food where you've got this paradox where we have an obesity epidemic, but at the same time there's rising levels of malnutrition. Now, this is the case because some of the foods that we eat, and there's an issue related to poverty here because some of the areas, ultra-processed foods are cheap. They're cheap to produce, so they're consumed in higher qualities in the less affluent communities. And that's a big key issue. We need to really tackle this. There's an excellent book by a doctor called Chris Van, I'm like you, Provost, I forgot my notes. Hang on, it's here somewhere. Dr. Chris Van Tuliken, who wrote a very good book that came out a few years ago called Ultra Processed People. Now, some members might have seen about a month ago to 6 weeks ago, there was a BBC documentary on prime time, and it was Dr. Chris Van Tuliken and the influencer Joe Wicks who had produced this cereal bar, which had ingredients in it were completely and entirely legal, but the effects of the ingredients were extremely negative on health. There's some countries like Brazil had brought in, if you look at food, you go into any Tesco or Morrison's, you'll see that the food's graded to salt and fat and so forth. There's a kind of traffic light system. But I think for ultra-processed food, some countries like Brazil have brought in like a black dot, which shows if something is really ultra-processed, just to help us all to make better decisions. But it really, government has acted. I will say this, the UK government, the Scientific Advisory Committee on Nutrition of the UK government has looked into this. There's a House of Lords committee has looked into it. We need to take action nationally, but of course these food corporations are international. So, but we've got to start somewhere. which is why it's valid, I think, to raise the debate here today. So I think I've said enough, Provost. I want to stick to this old 7 minutes, but it's a really important debate, and I think this was the time of year to bring it up because food's so important at the festive season. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Doig. Councillor Devine?
Thanks, Provost. I agreed to second this, and Andy sold it to me that it would be quite good because I'm quite stocky, he said. So, I'm happy to second it.
Thanks, Councillor Devine. I should have asked if we had any amendments. I'm sorry, I forgot, but yeah, Carol's just saying there are no amendments, Andy, and no one's put their hand up to speak, so I'm guessing it's safe to say we're just agreeing the motion. Thank you very much, councillors. Okay, the next motion is a long-awaited motion by Renfrewshire Youth Voice. I've been very patient over there. It's motion 10 by myself and Councillor McFarlane. And I'll start by saying you heard from the young people earlier on, and I think they've given you a fair roundup of what they're about, what their plans are, and what they hope to achieve. So I'm not going to labour too much on all of that. What I really wanted to do was bring this motion to council today to give the young people a sense of security, I suppose, that they are being heard, that we will listen to them in the future, and that we are a safe place for them to go to should they wish to express any opinions or thoughts or ideas, and that we will support them. And just to reiterate the council's support for them and all that they do, and the council have told me that, that they have that support. So that's the reason for the motion today. I also thought it would be a good idea to get a motion onto the council acknowledging them and recognising the work they do, so that they could it helps them to understand the process that the council goes through to prepare papers and amendments and motions and all that to full council for consideration. So it was really a bit of a learning curve and a bit of a congratulatory process at the same time. So I'm going to finish there. All I want to say is thank you to them from the bottom of my heart for coming along today. I know that it wasn't easy for you. I know that, you know, it's probably giving you an experience like you've never had before in your life. That's not to say it will be the last one that you'll have. As I said earlier, you may end up on the other side of this chamber someday, and I really hope that you do, because you spoke from the heart and you're very talented young people. And as I said already, the future of Renfrewshire is safe in your hands. So I'm going to be quiet there and ask Councillor Bruce if he wants to say a couple of words.
Yeah, thanks, Provost. I'd echo everything you've said there. I think Jackie and Jennifer spoke really, really well to the full council. It can be a daunting thing to do, but they certainly didn't seem to show any nerves doing it. And I think that's a credit to them. I think the RYV have a really important role, because I think young people get a lot of bad press. I think it's quite easy for certain newspapers to run stories about, oh, look at this teenager who's done X, Y, and Z. And I think that's why things like the RYV awards are so important in trying to combat that narrative and saying, you know, there is a lot of good work that young people are doing. Councillor Hughes very, very nicely said I was still in my early 20s. I'm getting on a bit. I'm in my late 20s now, but I was in my early 20s when I got elected. And I think that's sort of shifting a demographic where there's sort of 3 of us now in this current session that are elected in our early to mid 20s. And hopefully that's a trend that will sort of continue, and that will hopefully continue to grow. So thank you very much again for coming along today, and I appreciate all the work you're doing on behalf of the young people in Renfrewshire.
Thank you, Bruce. So to finish with the words of the motion, Renfrewshire Council commends the work of Renfrewshire Youth Voice, and through the Connected Communities team will continue to work with them and commit to providing or advising on any support that will help them to develop and put their ideas into place. So thanks once again for coming in today. Are we agreeing the motion? Agreed. Thank you so much. Well done. Another wee round of applause would be nice, yeah. So that brings us on to item motion 11 by Councillors McNaughton and Kenny McLaren. Are there any amendments? None. Okay, Councillor McNaughton.
Thank you, Provost. I'll be brief on this. It's in essence from the 1st of April 2023, unoccupied listed buildings no longer attracted 100% rates relief, which meant they're having to start paying. Now, this policy was brought in with a view to encouraging owners to get the buildings back into use. Now in Paisley we have quite a number of listed buildings, the highest outside of Edinburgh in terms of concentration, and there is a direct correlation between derelict buildings in general and deprivation, and we know there's a link there. So it's something that we need to address. What this motion is calling for is for a review on the policy. This policy was brought in by the Scottish Government with a view to, it's a bit of a stick to encourage the reuse of these buildings. I think at this stage we need to look beyond that and actually introduce a bit of a carrot. Now, it just seems to me that by maybe giving a break on that, some relief for a period whilst the buildings are undergoing restoration to an agreed timetable, that at the end of the day, the council would be getting more rates back because of the brought back into use. So I think looking longer term is actually beneficial financially. But the real reason, it shouldn't be the financial, it should be the restoration of these important listed buildings. And I think this is a policy that we need to review at this stage to make it a bit more effective. So I would ask you just to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor McNaughton. Councillor McLaren?
Thank you, Provost. I was just going to formally second. I think Councillor McNaughton's highlighted all the key points. Thank you.
Okay, just alert me if you want to come back in. Councillor Eddie Devine?
Thanks, Provost. I'm really glad to see this has come up, because some of the buildings in the Paisley area I can talk about are a disgrace, that are privately owned, and there's one at the High Street in the St Mirren Bray which has got trees growing out it, which is an absolute disgrace. We're trying to get people into the town. If you're coming in and seeing that, you're not going to come in. Something has to be done, and I fully support the two guys who bring this forward. This should be not just in Paisley, obviously Renfrewshire, but we really need to get a grip of these people who are just buying up land, buying up houses, buildings, and leaving them to rot because they can get what they want in the end.
Thanks, Councillor Devine. And just to confirm that the circumstances surrounding that building, our council officers have been trying hard to have that issue resolved for quite some time, despite what you might read on social media, all the negative Nancy's. The council is working hard to try and to stop that. But yeah, I think we need to take a firmer hand. Okay, thank you so much. No amendments, no other speakers, so motion is agreed. Yeah. That brings us on to our, no, it's not our final motion. We have this motion, then we have the Councillor Shaw emergency motion. So this is motion 12 by Councillors Innes and McFarlane. Councillor Innes.
Thanks, Provost.
Oh, so hold on, Councillor Innes. I believe I have an amendment. It's an addition. Can we have that sent round? Carol McDonald is sending that round now. Where's the addition from? Councillor Devine and Councillor Hood. Once you have the addition, Councillor Innes, if you could indicate if you're willing to accept that once you have a wee read of it, please.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, Councillor Innes, whenever you're ready, if you want to speak to your motion.
Hi, Provost. I'm not sure. Does that not already happen to an extent what the addition's asking for?
Can we, what officers here to answer that? It would be, Patrick. If you want to hold on a wee second, Councillor Innes, and I will ask Patrick what the process is. Patrick, I believe you're on the call.
Good morning, councillors. I can explain the current setup with Millie, if
Thank you,
that would help,
Patrick.
in relation to a call coming in. So the way that Millie currently works is the customer is answered by Millie, and the customer can then ask their question, or they can ask to speak to a human advisor. Millie will then ask the customer to repeat the request for clarification, and that's to ensure that Millie has understood what is being asked. If the customer asks to speak to a human advisor, Millie then offers the customer a menu to choose the department they wish to speak to. Can I add that that is similar to the previous telephone setup that we had? The customer selects the department and then they're transferred to a human advisor. If they do not select a department or they press 0, they're transferred to the council switchboard for help.
Thank you, Patrick. Hey, Councillor Innes, is that enough information to?
Aye, I mean, I'm happy to agree the addition. That's fine.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, sorry, I'll just crack on. Aye.
Yes.
Yep. Right, this motion is about ensuring that Renfrewshire continues to lead not only in digital transformation, but in ethical, responsible and transparent digital transformation. Over the past year, we've seen the successful introduction of Millie, an AI-powered customer support system. Millie's already become an award-winning example of how technology, when designed carefully and deployed responsibly, can genuinely improve the lives of our residents. She's reduced waiting times, improved access to services, and supported our staff by taking on routine tasks so they can focus on the people who need our frontline staff support the most. Colleagues, it's no accident that Renfrewshire is ahead of Scotland in this space. It's because of a clear commitment to innovation, a commitment that has been consistently championed by the Council has embraced digital tools not as gimmicks, but as practical ways to improve public services, protect staff workloads, and make our council more accessible to the people that we serve. But with that innovation also comes responsibility. As AI becomes a growing part of public service delivery, it's vital that we have ethical governance and transparent safeguards. We must protect our residents' rights. We must prevent bias. We must ensure that every AI system we use aligns with public sector values of fairness, openness, and trust. AI learns and it evolves. That's a strength, but it also means it requires scrutiny. Elected members must have that visibility and that oversight as that system develops. That's why this motion proposes a 6-monthly AI transparency report setting out all the AI tools currently in use, their purpose, any data protection, the quality of human rights assessments, and any change since the last report. Renfrewshire has the opportunity to be a national leader, not just in adopting AI, but in using it ethically, transparently, in a way that strengthens public trust. Millie could only be the beginning, a foundation upon which we can build an approach to AI that benefits residents, supports our staff, and reflects the innovative spirit that this council has championed. If we actually get this right, and Millie does not evolve into the Terminator, Renfrewshire can show Scotland that technology in the public sector does not replace people, it empowers them. It does not reduce accountability, it enhances it. It does not distance us from communities, it brings us closer. So I urge everybody to support this motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Innes. Councillor McFarlane.
Thanks, Provost. I think the rise in the use of AI has been quite unprecedented because it seems as if less than a few years ago it was virtually non-existent, and whereas today a significant proportion of the people use it on a daily basis. It's kind of as if society's crossed the Rubicon in a sense, because undoubtedly there is a significant potential for AI to improve our day-to-day lives and our standard of living. There have been exciting reports in healthcare that AI can be used to detect cancers at much earlier stages than previously possible. So it does have significant potential. And as Councillor Innes referred to, we here in Renfrewshire have started to use it in a way to help our staff in the way they work. And I would re-emphasise his point, AI must not be used to replace members of our workforce. And that is where the duty falls on us to ensure that when AI is being used by our council, it's done in an ethical and transparent way to protect our workforce and ensure it delivers on the aims which we have set out. The point is AI should be an addition, not a replacement. And with the further increasing digital world that we live in, we have to remember that there's still a sizable proportion of our population who do not use online services and will therefore not be keen in any interactions with AI. And I think that's the essence of Councillor Devine's addition. In the same way this council ensures that our services can be accessed via traditional means, the emergence of AI should not result in our council or any public body still not offering that traditional engagement service. I think the risk of AI in general is pertinent to highlight because usual search engines now have an AI function where everything that you search will have an AI summary. The AI will select sources that it thinks are relevant, and those are not always the most reliable. And any research conducted by staff or ourselves during our professional lives where AI is used should always be cross-checked with reliable sources. And indeed, there was a case, Ironday versus Haringey, LPC, where a junior barrister submitted fake cases before court, and the threshold for contempt of court was met, so it'd be ideal if none of us found ourselves in that position. Colleagues, the point is, the motion is that AI is here and it'll become more prominent in public and private sectors. If we are using it, we have to ensure we use it in a transparent, ethical and professional way that does not replace our workforce. Thanks, Provost.
Thanks, Councillor McFarlane. Just before we progress, I just want to bring in Mark. I'm having a wee issue with whether or not the amendment is competent. And I just want a wee bit of clarification on the addition. I just want a wee bit of clarification, Eddie, that's all.
Thanks, Provost. Sorry, can I just seek to clarify with yourself, Councillor Devine, as the mover of the amendment? As Patrick came in and explained, when someone calls into the council system, the call is answered by Millie, and then there is an option then by the process that Patrick described for the caller to be connected to a member of the public and to indicate, to a member of staff, and for them to indicate that that's what they want. I just want to clarify, is your amendment suggesting that there has to be a change to the system? So, sorry, Councillor, I appreciate you're saying it's an addition, but that is still minuted as an amendment. The amendment is to add something to the motion. So is the intention of your amendment that the system is changed so that even before Millie answers the call, that the person has to that a member of the public has to specify whether they're happy to speak to Millie or whether they want to speak to someone? Because the system does allow that currently under the current system, the call is answered by Millie and then they can specify that they want to move on. So it's just to be clear what the intention of the amendment was. And that's why the Provost is asking about the competency, because if you're asking for the change before the call is answered by Millie, it would be competent. If you're asking for it after, it's probably not competent on the basis that's already what happens.
Yeah, Eddie.
It happens eventually. If you've not lost the plot with Millie before then, what I'm saying is it should be much closer to the Millie saying, do you wish to speak to? I think something like that, you could do whatever they want, but you get there eventually. But sometimes, and there's no a councillor in this room who haven't had complaints about Millie and how you eventually get to where you want to be, particularly if it's an emergency. So I'm not asking for it to be, that option. I'm saying there should be an option to say, I would like to speak to a member of staff or words to that effect. That's all.
But there is. I hope you appreciate the position that I'm in just now, because I've got to rule on whether that's competent or not competent. And I've got to do that based on officers' advice. And from the advice that I'm hearing from Patrick is that there is an option to do that, which would deem your addition or your amendment not competent, because that already happens.
And is it, sorry, we're not going to follow this. What I'm saying is, it should be much clearer to the person that they could speak to a person. Whereas you're asked several questions, and you are asked several questions, because we did it on Tuesday, and we got there after about 2 minutes.
Okay.
It's just to make it clearer, rather than being, you want to speak to, Alan Russell. No, that, it's just, they need to be more clear about how you can get there. I'm happy to. Oh no, please no.
It's not necessary, Councillor. Okay, yeah,
But to be clear, it's instructing IT to make the change.
yeah,
So IT will need to look into that and see what we can do.
Yeah.
So it may well be something will come back.
but so what I'm hearing from Mark is that based on what the explanation you've just given, then that it probably is competent, probably just over that line, but we'll be instructing IT to try to make a change. So we need to be, I don't know whether they can actually do that or not. Could we hear from Patrick again? Patrick, do you want to come back in and try and help
Thank
us
you.
out with this a wee bit?
Yeah, thank you, councillors. We can certainly review the current setup in terms of Millie answering the call and what the options are for a more early intervention in relation to the customer or the resident wanting to speak to a CSO, if that helps.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to be awkward here, Patrick. We're hoping to do all this amicably.
No,
I just had to
that's fine.
clarification.
Yeah,
That
as I
you
said
can
earlier
actually
on,
look into that, and if you
yes,
can do that, we're
Millie
happy
answers
with
the
this.
call, and we can investigate the options and the potential routing to make it easier in relation to if a resident wants to speak to a human being, if I can describe it like that.
Okay, thanks. I'm sorry for the confusion.
Can I
I'm going to bring in Mark.
Thanks, Provost. Based on Patrick's comments, Councillor Devine, would you be happy if your amendment was to read IT department to investigate a change? I'm concerned about instructing officers to do something which at the moment they might not be able to do, but Patrick could investigate that and then come back to members. Thank you.
And that's a problem I had, so if we can sort that out, then that's good.
I'm happy to hear what Councillor Innes and Councillor McFarlane had in their speeches. I'm quite happy with that, particularly Bruce, when he said that AI is an addition, it's not in place of. And I don't want to misquote.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to bring in Councillor Ian McMillan now.
Yeah, thanks very much for that clarification. I don't think it does any harm to investigate. I was at the Cochrane Castle Association last Thursday, and I didn't bring it up, but a member of the public brought it up about Millie, and there was quite a bit of laughter surrounding Millie, and I think that's what you get usually at community meetings. I think people are a bit frightened of AI, just as the same as we're a bit frightened, maybe not frightened is right, we're a bit cautious about AI, same as we're cautious about the internet, same as we're cautious about the telephone, the same as we're cautious about the television. People are always a wee bit, what's happening here? I know, how old am I? Sorry. I'm not quite that old. But you know what I mean. So I think there should be an option, maybe quicker to speak to a person, and I think that's what Councillor Devine is trying to get. And I know that some people do get frustrated. I know I've only ever phoned up Millie once, and I had to repeat myself a couple of times because I was speaking too fast. So I learned and I spoke properly and slowly, and I understood where I wanted to be directed. But I think, yeah, there's a lot of people still out there who prefer to speak to a human being, know what the situation is, and can relate to the human being, and the human being can relate to them. And I think that should always be an option for people. So how it works, I'm not entirely sure. I'll leave that to the experts. But if we can just make it clear as quickly as possible, you can get shoved through to whoever. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. People will probably be frustrated watching this debate about Millie as well. But I just hope they know that we just need to get this process right. Councillor Andy Doig.
Thanks, Provost. I think the point that Councillor Devine and Councillor McMillan, I think, made some excellent points there in his contribution. I think the point that Councillor Hood and Councillor Devine were making is that it's not initially clear. You've got to wait a couple of minutes, Provost, before you actually get through to the option what department you want to speak to. Now, if you've got an elderly constituent, or somebody like me who's IT phobic, or somebody who just struggles with the whole process, a constituent who has got a water leak. Last Christmas I had a constituent who had water ingressing into her daughter's bedroom. It was the Christmas period. Somebody who's in a high emotional state. really, I think that they want to try and talk to someone as early as they can, and I think to review it is important. I want to bring up another point about AI. I mean, I'll need to be up front. I'm a bit AI skeptic. It's not. A decade ago, everybody thought social media, what a terrific thing. What could go wrong there? And now I think we've seen about things like increasing level of mental health in teenagers and issues like that. Councillor McFarlane said we've crossed a Rubicon. We have, and some of us might want to go back. But I really, the issue I want to raise, and I'll finish in this, is the question of accents. And this is, the constituents have raised this with me, Provost, that Millie cannot understand English regional accents, Scots accents, or Irish accents. And she really struggles with that. And I think that's to do with the issues of AI. If AI could speak in the diversity of languages, dialects that we have across the whole British Isles, it might be terrific. If AI just wants to speak the King's English, then we're in trouble. So I think Millie has to learn to speak different accents. Thank you.
I have that same problem when I go on holiday, Andy. People understanding the Scottish accent. Councillor Hughes.
Thanks, Provost. Unlike Councillor Doig, if I can not speak to a person when I'm dealing with customer services, I quite enjoy that. So I like AI. I would much rather just text somebody and they deal with it, and I don't have to sit there waiting on a line to speak to somebody on the phone. So it's something I prefer. I'm also a person who loves technology. I think there was a term coined that as technology developed, that people were digital immigrants in terms of people who had not grown up with technology. I'm of the generation where things were really starting to happen, so we're digital natives, it is referred to as. I think that AI, like every other technology, has its good and its bad points. But as Councillor McFarlane referred to, we are here, it's here, it is the world now, it is everywhere. We live in a world that is, you know, encompassed by technology. So we need to be upfront about it. And actually, while people have issues with it, part of the thing about AI is that it's a learning technology. I was talking to my friend the other day, and you can you Google yourself, and AI comes up, and it had lots of accurate things about her, and then it said that she was a Paralympic athlete, which she definitely isn't. So it's those things where it's picking things, but there are so many opportunities. And as a council, we have to understand, but it's also our responsibility to support our constituents. I will say now, our internal policy on this is brilliant. It's really thorough. It's got loads of things around ethics. I think part of what Councillor Innes and McFarlane have brought here is making that understandable for the public. We need to make sure that our constituents aren't afraid of this, and that actually they enjoy the benefits of the good bits of AI, because it is improving. There are bad things about it, and there's lots of ethical discussions around that. And in the world of technology, there are people who are very go, let's do as much as we can, and people saying, hold on, let's see what the impact is. And that's a philosophical discussion around how we live now. So I am glad that we're going to have reports to council about what we're doing in the ethics of it as things develop, because it's developing at the speed of light. But I think we have to celebrate what we are good at. The team have done such good work. It's a really ethical programming. Lots of our colleagues took part in the training around AI, and it was really helpful, and we looked at this programme, and for me, I thought it was great. And we just need to make sure that as we move, because we're a good council in terms of this, we're moving at the speed that we should be, we're making sure that we're at the forefront of things, we're improving the technology and the support that people can have through it. We just have to make sure that what we're doing is ethical. So I think it's an excellent suggestion that comes to us, because I think there are varying degrees of understanding in the chambers before you even get out into the public. So yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Thanks, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Chris Gilmer.
Thank you, Kabina. I had a wee bonus the moment there. 11. I just use the stairs now. I'll get somebody else to speak to the lift. I've got to say, I wasn't going to enter into this discussion. I got to see that common sense has prevailed. And perhaps there's been a lot of discussion, but let's go back to the last paragraph of the motion, please, Provost. Renfrewshire can be a national leader in ethical, transparent resident-focused AI. That is probably the key to this motion, because we can be. And AI is here to stay. In fact, if you look at some of these motions and reports, it's essayed through them, through council papers. Some of the information that AI is essayed through it. So if I was going to make any plea today, it was to work to one principle, and that's the KISS principle. Let's keep it simple, stupid. Let's make life easy for the people who interact with Renfrewshire Council and Renfrewshire Council when they interact with folk. And if we can do that, we'll go a long way. Really glad to see Patrick is going to go in a wee fiddle with the knobs and dials, if there's a such thing in a modern computer, to try and make sure it kicks in a bit quicker. I'm sure if the taxi service in Johnston can do it, I'm sure Renfrewshire Council can do it. I look forward to that. I'm not against AI. AI is the future, and it is touching all our lives now. Technology is, changing at the speed of light almost. So let's embrace it. But let's keep, as I say, keep it simple, stupid. Keep it simple for folk like me that hit things with hammers. Thanks, thank you very much, Provost.
Councillor John Shaw.
Thanks, Provost. I'm always a bit concerned to come in after Chris Gilmore when we're talking about AI in case we end up in the papers again. But I thought he said the Chris principle there, so I was really interested to see what the Chris principle was, but it was actually the KISS principle. So, I mean, coming from a sort of technology background, when I was elected in 2017. Alan Russell was finance director, and Patrick will confirm. I was massively frustrated about how we used our, IT setup. Everything we had at our disposal and how we used it and how limited we were and used it. As I say, coming from the private sector, seeing all these companies doing all this amazing stuff, and then coming to the council, and I just thought, my God, this is so limited. But over the years, we've changed. COVID obviously had a massive part in that, where, the meeting we're having just now, where I'm sitting at my desk in the house and, you're in the chamber, this would have been unthinkable in 2018, but we're here now. And AI is just almost a follow-on from that. It is frustrating for a lot of people. I get that. I quite often have conversations with Councillor Emma Rodden. I never quite got to hear that recording of her first call with Millie, but apparently it's a classic. There are frustrations here, but we can't forget that Millie is successfully dealing and diverting tens of thousands of calls on a regular basis. And people are happy with the output that they're getting from Millie. It's also diverting people online. Our online usage of our My Account type thing has risen massively over the time that Millie has been in place, as Millie is telling people how to do it. So, as Councillor Hughes says, I'm pretty much the same. I'd rather not talk to somebody, I'd rather just have the information. So it works for tens of thousands of people. There will be people who are frustrated. The very essence of AI is that it's continually learning. So, it should be getting better at the bits where it is failing. We've had, I think it was Councillor Doig that talked about accents. I think we had a West of Scotland accent plugin added to it a while back. All these sort of things are constantly evolving, constantly changing, and Millie should be constantly getting better. So, I appreciate there are frustrations, but hopefully over time these become less and less. There will always be people who just, I'm not going to engage with that, but for the vast majority of people, Millie works.
Thanks, Councillor Shaw. I'm going to bring in Councillor Jill Graham before I bring in Councillor Innes to sum up. Councillor Graham.
Thank you very much, Provost. I'll be very brief. I was thinking when we hear people talking, I absolutely agree that if we get people, some people like a voice, some people don't. They want it to automated, and sometimes it depends why you're calling. And to have that choice as early as possible is really good. So sometimes I might phone something that's automated. I'm perfectly happy. But an example I had a couple of years ago was I had to phone a bereavement line in a pension company, and it was a human being, and they ate a packet of crisps throughout the whole conversation. So sometimes humans are not the best people to answer the phone in those circumstances. So it's the right thing, the right the right person or machine answering for whatever you're phoning for. You know, so an AI is here to stay. So we have to get ahead of the game as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Provost.
Thanks for your comments. Thanks everyone for your comments. Okay, Councillor Innes, do you want to come in and sum up?
Thanks, Provost. No, I think that was an interesting conversation that just
Yeah.
happened with the councillors, and that was kind of the whole essence of this motion, is that we can have these regular conversations about artificial intelligence, you know. So, good to see Millie's been doing well. The award-winning Millie has been doing well for us this last year. So, that's all I've got to say on it. And cheers.
Thanks, Councillor Innes. You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say she didn't win an award for nothing. Let's just remember that. But okay, so we are going to agree the motion with the addition from Councillor Devine, and Patrick is going to see if he can tweak Millie to get us all to love her again. Agreed? Thank you. Okay, that brings us on to our final motion today, which is the emergency motion from Councillor John Shaw. Councillor Shaw, who was your seconder? Councillor Hughes.
Councillor Hughes.
Okay, and I think we sent that round to councillors, didn't we? We did, we put it on the chat. Okay. I don't think we have any amendments. Have we had any? No? Okay, Councillor Shaw.
Okay, thanks, Provost. A nice cheery motion to round us off for the year. Delighted to bring this motion to recognise the remarkable achievements of 15-year-old Renfrew High School pupil and Renfrew resident Mitchell Laurie. Now, many of us in Renfrew will have been following Mitchell's journey last week at the Lakeside, you know, the iconic Lakeside venue for darts fans. And what a week it was with Mitchell returning home as the WDF World Junior Champion, a world title winner at just 15 years old, and an astounding accomplishment by any measure. I'll tell you, you didn't have to be at Lakeside though to feel the excitement. Renfrew was absolutely buzzing all last week, and in particular at the weekend. Everywhere I went, in shops and cafes, out walking the Dug, people were talking about Mitchell. Even people who had never watched darts before. I spoke to an elderly lady when I was out at the pub, and she told me she'd never watched it before, but how much she'd enjoyed following his matches because she'd seen them on social media. It really genuinely brought the town together in a way that's rare and special. Even the coverage added to the atmosphere. Many of us watching it on iPlayer, tuning into S4C, the Welsh language channel. They had the rights for the competition. So all the commentary was in Welsh when the English language version wasn't available, which only seemed to make the whole experience more memorable and maybe added to the sense we were witnessing something unique. But what really captured the town's imagination wasn't just the junior title that Mitchell won. It was Mitchell's extraordinary run in the Senior Open, where he wasn't just competing, he was beating some of the best. On his way to the final, he knocked out the #2 seed, a result that turned heads across the darts world. And then in the final itself, it was amazing. He showed nerves of steel, going 3-0 up against a vastly more experienced opponent. To see a 15-year-old from Renfrew leading 3-0 in a senior world championship final, it was I'm sure a moment none of us will forget. It ultimately wasn't to be, but I think it honestly says everything about his ability that anybody could feel even slightly disappointed that he only won one world title on Sunday. Both of these finals were on the same day. At 15, when you think about it, it's absolutely bonkers. His performances in the hockey were exceptional, confident, composed, fearless, and his interviews throughout the week were equally impressive. He carried himself with real maturity and charm, winning respect from fans across the world. Now, the eventual senior winner, the Dutch star Jimmy van Schie, described Mitchell as a phenomenal talent in the future of the sport. And after watching what Mitchell delivered last week, it's very hard to disagree. Mitchell has done himself, his family, and the entire town incredibly proud. His success also reflects the dedication and support of his family, his coaches at the West of Scotland Darts Academy in Renfrew, his mentors in the local darts community. And Provost, it's important to say this isn't even the end of Mitchell's year. On the 20th of December, he will take to the stage at the Ali Pali, another iconic venue, to compete in the Junior Darts Corporation World Final. I'm sure we all wish him the very best for that event, and I've no doubt he'll once again do Renfrew proud. So for all these reasons, this motion congratulates Mitchell on his achievements and agrees that arrangements be made in consultation with Mitchell and his family to host a civic reception in his honour, a fitting recognition for a world champion emerging from our community. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. Councillor Hughes.
Thanks, Provost, and thank you for accepting the emergency motion. Emergency motions are usually about things like walls and things, and it's quite nice, I think, to end the day on one where it's about something super positive. I echo everything that John said. Among my group of kind of Renfrew SNP friends, John and Jim are serious dart watchers. I would refer to myself as a casual darts watcher. I watch it when Jim invites me to the pub and the darts is on, and I don't even know what's happening. But I watched the darts all week, and my goodness, that last game, I was on the edge of my seat. He is an incredible darts player. I think to be at that level at the age of 15, early in Mitchell's career, which seems like an absolutely wild thing to say, he got a little bit of funding from our sports funding. Sorry, I lost my train there. Our sports funding councillor John Shaw had got in touch with One Rent to arrange that, and because he'd seen the talent there already, and we supported that. And it seems absolutely wild to me to say early in his career for somebody who's 15. As John said, the town was absolutely buzzing. I was in an Aldi and two wee ladies behind me were talking about it. And you don't really expect that about a darts championship. Although I suppose that's making observations about people that you wouldn't expect. It's just absolutely brilliant. It's an absolute credit to the town, to Renfrewshire, to Scotland. I mean, just brilliant. So thank you for accepting the motion, and for the civic hospitality. His family are really pleased about it, and he is too. I think also it must be an absolutely wild experience for Mitchell. He's been in 2 competitions over the last 2 weeks, and then he's gone back to school on Monday. And it just, we think of people who are sports champions as people who are adults who do that as their job, but he's just gone back to school and he'll have prelims. It's just, but yeah, he's just a credit to the town. It's brilliant.
It sounds crazy, doesn't it? Right, okay, Councillor Paterson.
Thanks very much, Provost. I'm pleased to support the motion. I think it's quite nice that both the motions have kind of bookended with sporting achievements today. I think that's quite nice. Councillor Hughes is right. I'm a darts enthusiast, having been to see the darts on several occasions, and I look forward to seeing Mitchell perform live at a major competition, probably not in the not too distant future. But just to kind of highlight, I mean, not just Renfrew talking about this. I was in Partick at the weekend before they start checking for passports at the tunnel, of course. And several people who know, obviously, I'm based in Renfrew, were asking about him because that's all. And so the buzzes actually went beyond Renfrew. So I think that he's going to, the west of Scotland in general are going to take this guy to their heart, particularly because he's so young, and people will see parallels with other kind of youngsters coming through. But I always associate darts with this time of year as well, because this is when all the competitions come ahead, the majors. So it's always a nice time of year, and it's just well done to Mitchell, his family, his coaches, and everyone involved. It's a real great achievement. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Paterson. Councillor Grady.
Thanks, Provost. I really just want to echo everything that's been said. On Saturday there, I was at the Cherry Centre Christmas Fair, and I was talking to Maggie Laird, who had organised the event, and an excellent event it was. But Maggie was telling me that Mitchell used to attend the Cherry Centre, and just as what's already been said, everybody was talking about it at the Cherry Centre. They thought it was an excellent achievement, and he was only at the quarter-final stage at that point, and even that is, you know, itself is phenomenal. So it's a massive quick rise to fame, and let's hope it continues for Renfrew and Renfrewshire. Thank you very much, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ian McMillan.
Yeah, I would like to pass my congratulations on to Mitchell. I've kind of been following his career over the last few while because there's been quite a lot of publicity about it. And like Jim, this is the time of year you associate with darts, because I think the actual Ali Pali starting today, and it's all certainly it's a staple in my house when you watching the run up to Christmas. Then it has a wee break, and then very much part of your new year watching the darts. And I suppose you can't help but make comparisons to Luke Littler, who is just only a few years older than Mitchell, and who has became a household name. Everybody knows who he is and what he's achieved. And he's now the #1 darts player in the world. So listen, I think it's absolutely fantastic. And anybody that achieves sporting greatness, I'm in awe of them. But when it's a 15-year-old boy who lives 4 or 5 miles away from where I live, it's just absolutely incredible. Listen, and then it's not just about what he's achieved, it's behind that, it's the work that he's done. I'm sure he's missed plenty of opportunities to go out with his pals or various other activities just to stand in front of a dartboard and practice. And that's what we don't see as somebody who's a casual watcher of tournaments, the hours of practice. And I'm sure his family have been putting him in the car and taking him all over the place to take part in tournaments all over the place. So credit to his family that have looked after him. So I wish him well, and I hope to see him performing at the highest level in the future. Well done, Mitchell.
Thank you, Councillor McMillan. Councillor Shaw, do you want to sum up?
Yeah,
anything else to say?
Just a couple of things. It's right what Councillor McMillan's saying there about his family. I spoke to his mum on Tuesday, and she was saying she was about to start 10 straight shifts because all the time she had off, for the tournament in Gibraltar before the World Championships. And then, the World Championships themselves. So she was about to start 10 straight shifts for that. And Mitchell himself, he wasn't back to school on Monday. He was back to school on Wednesday. They were up the road on Monday, so you get Tuesday off. But it's right, it's a massive investment in this young lad, and it's all paying off. Well, it seems to be all paying off. I think Councillor McMillan also mentioned Luke Littler. Luke Littler only got to the last 32 of this Senior Open Championship the last time he played in it. So Mitchell's done better than him, and I think Mitchell's also been clear in the past that he's not the next Luke Littler. He's the first Mitchell Laurie, and we commend him in that. So thank you very much, Provost.
Thanks, Councillor Shaw. I think I'll just finish by sending a message to him. Hopefully he'll watch this and hear all the lovely comments about him, and it'll drive him on to even more success. But I just want to say to him, thanks very much for cheering us all up. I think he created such a buzz in Renfrew. It was akin to the World's Scotland's qualifying for the World Cup. It was like that all over again in Renfrew. I have family there, and I know fine well what the stir that he caused. So just want to say thank you to him for cheering us all up, and a huge well done. We are so proud of you, Mitchell, and we'll see you soon at an event to honour you. So thanks, councillors, thanks so much for all your patience today. Thank you for singing along with the young people from St Peter's Primary School. Although you can do better next year, I'm sure. I don't know if your report card will, you don't know if you'll get a gold star, but certainly maybe a silver one.
Ruined my Christmas, wasn't it? A single vote.
Not a single vote today in today's meeting. Now, I think it's been a long time since that happened. I would actually, I'm not gonna ask Mark to go away and check. It'll probably take him ages, but it was nice to finish the year on that note, especially when we had all the young people in the chamber watching us today. So thanks so much for your time, and I hope you all have a really lovely Christmas. Try and get a good rest, because I know how hard you all work. And thanks for coming today. Thank you. Thank you. I will.